So, rather a lot of people will tell you that you should celebrate gays, but I'm probably the first to tell you that you should be thankful to gays. Now, allow me to explain why. In the 1960s, there was an experiment done by one John Calhoun involving rats. Now, he kept the rats in a closed system, but supplied all their physical needs, food, water, and so forth. And of course, it wasn't long before the rats' population began to increase dramatically. At first, there were no problems, but many problems very quickly arose once the rats were living in a crowded environment. Things like not properly caring for the young, violence, and so on and so forth, all very disturbing things. But one of the less disturbing things was an increase in homosexual behavior. You have to be a complete idiot to deny the fact that a lot of the world is overpopulated. And so, of course, it's no surprise that we're seeing the psychological stresses of such a thing. And of all the ways for it to manifest, homosexual behavior is incredibly peaceful. We should in fact be thankful to the gays for sacrificing their genetic code so that we don't have to die in war and famine. It's really quite a nice end to it. So with all the extreme sexual deviance that's going on, it's naturally quite alarming to some, but it's only a matter of time before we start seeing dramatic drops in the Western population, and we can only hope that's not cancelled out by immigration from Middle Eastern nations. So next let's talk about transsexuals. Now, transsexualism is a very heated topic. Some people think it's the best thing in the world. Some people completely lose their heads when it's brought up. And the problem is actually very complicated. There's this condition called gender dysphoria. Now, this condition is when the person has the body of one gender, but the brain of the opposite gender. Yes, men and women do actually have different brains. The neurological wiring is distinctly different. There are many different ways in the way emotions are processed, the way sounds are processed, the way we think about mathematics. We are very different in the mind. It's this hilarious double bind the left has put itself in, because on the one hand, you're not allowed to acknowledge any of the differences between men and women, moreover to suggest that there actually are any is considered sexist and makes you a misogynist. But this puts them in the position where they can't actually, in conversation, appeal to people and medically explain why transgenderism is legitimate, because to do so would disprove the prior claim. Of course, no hard-wing leftist can explain transgenderism because it's completely against their philosophy. But enough about the politics of it, let's talk about the thing itself. See, when it comes to the issue of what it is, there are two sides. One side says they're mentally ill, incarcerate them. The other side says, no, they're absolutely wonderful human beings, and both are a little bit silly. It is plain and simply a birth defect, like Down syndrome or being born with the incorrect number of fingers. It's a very unfortunate condition, and the problem gets even worse. Our modern medical procedures that we attempt to use to fix the problem, well, what we do is, let's say you've got a man, he's got the body of a man, but he's got the brain of a girl. So he's going to transition into a woman. Well, so what does he do? Well, he grows his hair out, probably. He starts taking hormones, estrogen, and he gets a boob job. Well, there are problems with this. One, he's not going to have a fulfilling sex life in any way. There's no guy that's going to be turned on when they find out that his genitals aren't actually properly a woman's. Also, unless the man in question starts at a very young age, or was severely malnourished, he's never going to physically look like a girl. It's not politically correct to say, but men and women simply are different in their general shape. The bone structure is not much alike at all. He won't fool anyone, except perhaps urban-raised androgynous lunatics who have never seen a fully developed man or a woman anyway.
although arguably the biggest physical concern simply to the person transitioning themselves is the hormones. You see, if he was a man, he has a YX chromosome. Saying he's not a man, he's really a woman, doesn't change his actual cells. Every single one of his cells is actually still a man's cell, and men and women's bodies respond differently to the different hormones. One of the negative responses that he could experience is a far higher risk for cancer. Large amounts of estrogen drive cancer. That's one of the things that causes it. And since his cells are not designed to handle that much estrogen, it really could have very bad effects. Now, there are other things that suggest possibly there could be brain damage and all sorts of organ damage, but the science is still out on that. But it's known that there will be cancerous complications. And the plain and simple fact is, you've gone from having someone who has a double part system with the brain of one gender and the body of the other, to now the system is triply complicated. They have the brain of one gender, the body of the other, and now all these hormones and extra body parts being sewn on. And just from a medical perspective and holistic health, it's not a very good idea. The more distorted you make something, the greater the chances that something's going to go wrong. Now, I'm not any sort of hater. It would be ridiculous to call me that. I actually feel very sympathetic to these people, because can you imagine being trapped inside the wrong body? It would be very uncomfortable. You couldn't live a fulfilling life, and there really is no actual cure. There's no solution to the problem. You can't just tell them to stop feeling differently because they physically are messed up, and we can't fix it for them. So there's no fix to the problem. It's like Down syndrome. There is no solution. So don't draw attention to their problem by celebrating them. That's obnoxious and absurd, and also pig-headed. And don't hate them. It's like someone with Down syndrome. When someone has a physical birth defect, we simply let them live their lives in the way that they best can to be happy, and try not to draw attention to it. So now, onto the problem of 70 whatever new genders. This is absurd. When the hell did this come about? When did personality traits suddenly mean gender? I mean, cutting your hair short and getting funny piercings and tattoos, that does not make you a new gender. Gender is a synonym for sex. There are 2 plus defects. Cutting your hair, having a weird liking, a weird kink or whatever, that does not make you a new gender. It means you have a personality trait. When did people become so devoid of personality traits that unique personality traits we suddenly have to start calling genders? There was a time and age where if someone had a unique personality, or they were abnormal, we just considered them a little bit different. They have a different personality, but now we say that they're a new gender. This is absurd, and it needs to stop now.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you disagree with me or think I made a mistake, let me know in the comments. If you want to hear more politically incorrect ramblings, subscribe to my channel. I'm the conservative crusader of liberality, and you are one step closer to sanity.